All right, so we're in video 2. All right, so pediatric cardiologists have recognized more than 50 congenital heart defects. When we look at fetal defects, heart defects are right up there with fetal development issues. It says septal defects developed in the left and right sides are not completely separated. So, for example, sometimes you hear about a hole in the heart. So if that septum, right, the interventricular septum or the intraatrial septum, if it doesn't close, then there's a hole in the heart. And they're talking about between the right and the left sides. Anomalies form in the four heart chambers, do not develop normally. It's called tetralogy of Fallot. Stenosis, septal defect, displacement of the aorta, hypertrophy. So this is a common heart defect that kids or fetuses can have. Heart valves. Okay, so again, the valves are keeping the blood flowing in one direction. So whether it's between the right and left atrium and ventricle, that's called the tricuspid, the pulmonary between the right ventricle and the lungs, between the left atrium, left ventricle, that's the bicuspid, and between the left ventricle and the rest of the body, that's the aortic. Right, so they talk about that. They talk about each valve. So the heart has its own vascular system. Okay, so the heart is working for you 24/7. It needs nutrients. It needs oxygen. So it has blood vessels that supply the heart wall itself. So sometimes when you hear about someone having a heart attack and when you hear about their vessels being clogged, that's what they could be talking about. The coronary arteries, they supply the heart directly. Like the first branches off of the aorta are the coronary arteries. Cardiac veins collect oxygen, pour blood. So they show that, right? So the heart wall itself needs nutrients. So here's the right coronary artery. Here's the left coronary artery. Brings nutrient-rich blood to the heart wall. And here are the veins taking the blood away. So again, sometimes when you hear someone having to do a bypass, triple bypass, quadruple, they're talking about these vessels. They directly feed the heart wall. And again, the heart wall needs nutrients to do its job. And if it can't get those, that's where someone gets a heart attack, right? And literally the heart wall, the cells die. And by the way, if they die, they cannot fix themselves. So that is permanent damage. Actually, though, they are working with stem cells to see if they can fix the heart wall. And in some cases they have. So that's really promising research. So coronary circulation, conduction, the heart, okay, it has its own conduction system. Okay, so for example, if I asked you to clench your fist, the way it works is the brain sends impulses to the muscles so they clench, okay? So your skeletal muscle would not work without the nervous system making it so, okay? The nervous system controls the muscular system, okay? But when we talk about the heart has its own pacemaker cells that make the heart work all on its own. Okay, for example, if you remember the movie like Indiana Jones, where the guy takes the heart out of the other guy's chest and the heart is just pumping in his hand, like, is that possible? Could that be real? The answer is yes. The heart itself, if you took the heart out of the body and just laid it on the table, it will pump, okay? So what happens is it does not need the nervous system in order to generate the contract. The heart wall itself has its own myocardial cells that will excite the heart by itself. So here it says, but of course, when you exercise, your heart rate can go up. When you relax, your heart rate can go down. So the nervous system does control heart rate. But the heart has its own pacemaker cells too. Okay, so this is the autonomic nervous system. Think of auto, self, autonomic nervous system. The nervous system that's regulating all on its own. You don't think about it. You don't say, hey, heartbeat slow. Hey, heartbeat faster. It just does, okay? The autonomic nervous system controls the rate and rhythm of the heart, generated by special neuromuscular tissue of the heart. So heart wall itself has these rhythmic cells that generate electrical impulses to make the heart wall contract. The tissue is the sinoatrial node. It's in the atrium. Atrioventricular node, so it's between the atrium and the ventricle, and the atrioventricular bundle. All right, so let's look. So right here, right in the top of the right atrium is the sinoatrial node. That is the pacemaker. So again, if you took the heart out of the body, it will beat on its own. And this is the primary pacemaker. That's what's generating the contraction. Then the electrical impulses go over here. And then this is the atrioventricular node. And there's a slight delay between when this fires and then this contracts. Then there's a delay. Then this has to go down this way. Those are the atrioventricular bundles, or also known as the bundle of His, moving down. And then the ventricles contract. And there has to be a delay. Why does there have to be a delay? Well, if this pumps, let me get this. If this pumps, the blood has to go here. Then this has to relax before this pumps. If they pumped at the same time, there wouldn't be any time for this to fill with blood, if that makes any sense. So literally, the atria contract, relax, the impulses move to the ventricles, then the ventricles contract, relax, and the atria contract, relax, and then the ventricles contract, relax. Squeeze, squeeze, okay? Again, I'll show you guys video, which helps a lot. So, sinoatrial node, that's the pacemaker, upper wall on the right atrium. Purkinje fibers, atypical muscle fibers, considered to be the source of impulses. Electrical impulse, okay, go through. Atrioventricular node, right? Atrioventricular bundle. Now, we can record these electrical impulses that are passing by, so it's like fire, go across, then go across, and it's fire, contract, relax, fire, contract, relax. And, so the electrical impulses have to happen first before the muscle contracts. So we can actually record the electrical impulses. The heart's electrical activities can be recorded by an electrocardiogram, an ECG, also known as the EKG, which provides valuable information in diagnostic abnormalities. All right, and if I go back, right, the heart rate can be affected by emotion, smoking, disease, body size, age, stress, environment, many other factors. So we have this pacemaker, but we could go faster, we could go slower, depending on other external factors or internal factors, right, with the brain. So now the blood, so that was all about the heart. Now the vessels. So truly the heart is the pump, and the vessels are the little highways, okay? So arteries, all arteries have pulse, reflect rhythmical beating of the heart. If you put your fingers right here, right on your neck, this is your carotid artery, and you can feel your pulse. That's because as the heart is pumping, the blood is being pushed up to your brain, and literally as the blood pushes, it pushes on the vessel and you can feel your pulse, right? So all arteries take blood away from the heart to the body parts, and they have a pulse, okay? Arteries, okay, most common sites for taking a pulse, radial. Where's radial, right? So over here, remember your radius, your ulna, so radial will be here. Brachial is your arm, and carotid, okay? And there's pictures of that. Oh, yeah, there's a picture, right? So we can look. This actually shows the major arteries. I will not ask you to know the names of the major arteries because this is not an anatomy class, but in anatomy, you would need to know that, okay? So going throughout the body, these are the major blood vessels. Of course, wherever you are, they'll actually eventually branch to capillaries, and there's going to be the nutrient exchange. Okay. So pulse checkpoints, temporal, the temple area, carotid, brachial, radial, femoral, the femur, right? Popliteal, behind the knee, dorsal pedis, right, the foot. So this shows the pulse points. So again, radial is the major one, carotid is another one, and brachial. Those are really the ones we check, but these are some other areas where we could check too. Veins. Okay, so the blood's going to go to the tissues, then there's going to be nutrient waste exchange. The blood has to come back to the heart, and it's going to come back via the veins. Now, if you think of it like a circulatory system, by the time the veins, they're further away from the pump, so they're going to need help. Okay, it says vessels that transport blood from the peripheral tissues back to the heart have thin walls. They have valves. So since the veins are farther away from the pump, we have to have valves to keep the blood flowing in one direction, okay? So here are the major veins. And actually, if we could put the two pictures of the arteries and the veins, the major arteries, if I go back, this picture of the major arteries, okay, and this picture of the major veins, if I could put them right on top of each other, right next to each other, you'll see that the major arteries and the major veins, they travel right next to each other, okay? Capillaries, microscopic blood vessels with single-celled walls that connect arterioles and venules. Those are the small arteries, small veins. Blood passing through the capillaries gives up the oxygen and nutrients carried to this point, where arteries picks up waste carbon dioxide. All right, so here shows the artery. Here's the capillary, and then the nutrient waste exchange between the blood and the tissues happens here, and then the blood's going to come back to the heart via the veins. And again, since it's farther away from the heart, there's going to be valves that keep the blood going in one direction. Blood pressure. So imagine you have a vessel and there's something flowing through. The pressure is what's exerted on the walls, and that's exactly what it is. It's called blood pressure. So pressure exerted by the blood on the walls. There's usually if you go to the doctors and you get a blood pressure reading, there's two numbers, like say 120/80, okay? Those are the pressure on the vessels. The high number, also known as systolic, is the pressure while the heart contracts. The low number is called diastolic. It's the pressure when the heart relaxes. And the instrument, we've all gone to the doctors, we've all gotten our blood pressure taken, probably, okay? The measurement, the machine that gets your blood pressure is called a sphygmomanometer. There it is, sphygmomanometer, okay? It gives us our blood pressure reading. So here it is. If you took physiology, you would learn how to do blood pressure. Again, if you're going in the medical field, you'll learn how to do that. They show you exactly the blood's flowing through. You pump the cuff to stop the blood from flowing through, and then you slowly release. And right when you start hearing the pulse, that's the top number, the systolic. Right when you stop hearing the pulse, that's the bottom number, that's the diastolic. So they show how we do that. All right, yes, different blood pressure varies depending on age, on sex, yeah. Average blood pressure at birth, 80/46, wow. Respiration are approximately 35 to 50 per minute. So for babies, it's different, yeah. Pulse, right, okay, they're talking about that. Angiogram, okay, angio-vessel-gram, record, so we can record what's going on there. Now we're talking about some disorders. I hate to say this, but it's kind of really neat. And the reason why, and this is not the neat part, okay, but it's neat to learn about it. Cardiovascular issues, they're the number one killer in the United States. So if you learn about them, it's kind of interesting, right? What are the issues that we have as a nation, as people in a nation? And cardiovascular is the biggest deal. So here we're going to get into some of the disorders. So here it says aneurysm. Aneurysm is like the bulging of a vessel, and that could be dangerous. It can burst, it can bleed. What's the problem? There could be internal bleeding. You hear about internal bleeding